What comes next is an example of what I call a cognitive selfie. This is the finished product of CAVT techniques. It's about 1.5 minutes of powerful video built with CBT and NLP strategies. Narrating the video is my daughter Tori. She agreed to stand in as my actress for this shoot. My granddaughter Marianne, age 9 months, stars in the video as well. Now as you watch this video, think of all the strategies that went into the making of it. First, we identified the negative, distorted thoughts that were creating negative feelings about things being messy. We then took each of those thoughts and created a mutually exclusive counter thought that produces the opposite meaning and opposite feelings about things being a mess. This is the cognitive behavioral part. Next, we form these thoughts into a narrative and shoot a simple videotape of ourselves stating the desired ways of thinking here about a mess. Then we drop in a few pictures and some music to further evoke powerful positive emotions. And now we're ready to load these new thoughts and emotions back into the system by using the most powerful tools in the system, our audio and visual processing centers. This is the neuro-linguistic programming part. So, without further ado, please enjoy the show.
Today I need to remember a few things about myself. I'm a great mother, not perfect, but quite good. Sure, I may lose my patience once in a while, but that happens to every mother, bar none. Being a mother is a learning process, and I'm still learning it, and doing it well, as good as any mother could. If it appears to me that other mothers are more organized, I don't want to be fooled by that. I'm not only seeing the highlight reels. Most mothers are careful to show only the happy and fun side of mothering when others are watching. All mothers get disorganized, frustrated, and tired, and every house gets messy. When things seem to be discouraging and stressful, I want to stop and remember that life is normal, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Life as a mom is sometimes messy and hard, but the journey is so worth it and so beautiful. I will embrace it with everything I've got.
Thank you, Tori, for a fabulous job. You know, she did that after just one practice run, and I totally surprised her. She had no time to prepare. Didn't she do great? And to baby Marianne, of course, for providing the powerful positive emotions. Isn't she precious? Of course, Grandpa's just a bit biased. The point I'd like to make here is that this video took all of 15 minutes to produce. I completed the entire video using Photo Booth and iMovie on my MacBook. It was easy to use iMovie. In fact, after watching a 12-minute tutorial on YouTube, I was in business. Yes, it's that easy. Windows also comes standard with Movie Maker, which appears pretty easy to use as well from the videos I've watched on YouTube. So if you have a PC or a Mac, you can make one of these. And if you have a smartphone, an iPod, or a tablet, you can carry it around with you and watch it anytime you have a few extra minutes to practice better thinking. Standing in line, waiting at the doctor's office, while doing housework, put your earbuds in and at least listen to the audio portion. This is quite powerful in and of itself. It just doesn't get much more convenient or more powerful than this. Now, if you need help with any of this, please feel free to email me, text me, or contact me through my webpage, and I'll be more than willing to give you any support that you need. So why the video? The visual cortex is by far the most complex and powerful of the sensory systems. Neurons devoted to just visual processing number in the hundreds of millions and take up about 30% of the entire cortex, as compared to about 8% for touch and 3% for hearing. Each optic nerve consists of 1 million fibers compared to a mere 30,000 fibers for each auditory nerve. And of course, when we watch the video, we include the audio. Simply stated, watching a video requires exponentially more synaptic connections than anything else we could possibly do. It is easily 1,000 times greater than simply trying to think in better ways about something. A common statistic circulating on the internet is that 1 minute of video is worth 1.8 million words. Turns out that isn't actual research. If you do the math, you'll find that that figure actually comes from an extrapolation of an ancient Chinese proverb that says a picture is worth 1,000 words. There are 60 seconds in a minute, and a standard frames per second for video is 30 per second. So 30 frames per second times 60 seconds equals 1,800 pictures times 1,000 words, and you've got 1.8 million words. So, how many words are really in a minute of video? Well, as it turns out, someone actually did the research. It was done in 1983 by Nicholson Baker in an experiment that he did to investigate the size of thoughts. In this experiment, he asked participants to describe in words the same information expressed in a single diagram by others. From the average number of words needed to describe a diagram, he calculated that a picture is worth 84.1 words. So, 30 pictures per second times 60 seconds times 84.1 words equals 151,000 words per minute of video. Now, this is considerably less than 1.8 million, but it still equals about 300 pages of single-spaced typed text. And if that isn't impressive enough to convince one that the power of videotape is as big as I say it is, then consider the fact that Budweiser spent $4.5 million for a 30-second spot just a few months ago at this year's Super Bowl in 2015. Advertisers know the power of video to influence the human brain, and most of us have that kind of power right in the palm of our own hands in the form of a smartphone. If Budweiser's willing to spend that kind of money for 30 seconds of your attention on video, then what's it worth to you? The difference, of course, is that your custom video is designed to change your life, not just sell you a beer. Now, at the beginning of this presentation, we did a little exercise to point out the fact that we have a default way of viewing things. Now, this is our normal perspective of toilet paper. In this case, I'm comparing this to the default perspective of seeing a mess as something negative, maybe as a failure. When viewed from a different perspective, it was completely unrecognizable. But with just a few exposures, we can begin to recognize this second picture as toilet paper. This is a very powerful thing that our brains can very easily do with the visual cortex. It can be as hard at first to see a mess as something beautiful as it is to see this as toilet paper. When you first saw it, it was completely foreign. Nobody had any idea what it represented. Now, after merely 3 exposures, your brain has literally built, via neuroplasticity, a new representation for toilet paper. The more we expose ourselves to this image, the more familiar it becomes. And this is really the goal of CAVT, to create a new perspective that begins to become more familiar with each passing exposure to it, and especially exposure using the visual cortex. By viewing or listening to the tapes, we're using the most powerful machinery in the brain to create this new perspective. And by feeding it in with our own voice and our own image, we're also using an already installed system, the reticular activating system, to focus our attention. Roughly 10 billion new synaptic connections are being made in our brains every single day. By the time we're done with this presentation, our brains will literally contain several hundred million new synaptic connections, whether we wanted them or not. By writing, reading, speaking, hearing, and watching these new ideas on video, we're creating the new perspective exponentially faster than any other way it could be done. I want to point out also that the exercise we did in the beginning with the sets of pictures We forged that powerful link using the visual cortex. I trust that all of this makes a solid case for using these video images to load our new perspectives. Lastly, I would like to touch on a bit of a historical perspective. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, was developed in the 1960s out on the East Coast by the likes of Aaron Beck, Donald Meichenbaum, and Albert Ellis. The effort was popularized in the groundbreaking book by David Burns in the 1980s, The Feeling Good Handbook, which was a bestseller selling some 400 million copies. Neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, was developed on the West Coast in the 1970s by Richard Bandler, John Grinder, and was based on the work of Virginia Satir. Tony Robbins, most of you have probably heard of him, and The Ultimate Edge, was actually a student of Bandler and Grinder, and much of Tony's work is built on neuro-linguistic programming. These two techniques are simply two of the hottest techniques to ever hit the world of psychology. They've proven their effectiveness in over 500 clinical studies and counting. The fact that they're still around after half a century and going strong speaks for itself, doesn't it? These techniques are proven strategies for stress management, anxiety problems, depression, addictions, weight loss. The list goes on and on. So on a final note, this question: does practice make perfect? No. Practice makes permanent. Only the perfect practice makes perfect. Practicing the wrong things only grooves the wrong performance. CAVT is really the process of learning how to practice the perfect perspective. Now, CAVT is not something that I can teach you in a 60-minute workshop or in these videotapes. It typically takes a few weeks, maybe 5 to 10 weeks, to really get the hang of it. If you're interested in finding out more, please send me an email, shoot me a text, whichever is more convenient, and I can explain to you all of the options I have available. It's been my pleasure spending this time with you, and I thank you for spending your time with me. See you on the beautiful side.